fuck me hard.
Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, back here, host of Operation GCD, not the vice president, for another Fridaze with my co-host, Nick, from the Occult Rejects. Nick, how you doing, sir?
What's going on? How are you?
Doing well. Excited for another Fridaze with our guest here, Heidi Luv, host of the Unfiltered podcast. How you doing, Heidi?
I'm good, other than this voice. You know how it is. Still got that cold. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us here for a Fridaze. I'm definitely excited, as you know, as a former Mormon myself for the first 20 years of my life. I'm excited to talk Mormon stuff, and as I pointed out to you, I got a lot of Mormon stuff going on in my family tree too. So that's something I want to talk about regarding the origin story, or the church's official story of the origin story of the Mormon Church, which I've kind of collected a large volume of circumstantial evidence that claims that that's bullshit. So definitely excited to talk to you about that. But at the Unfiltered Rise, that's kind of that's your wheelhouse, right? Parapolitics and Mormon biz, right?
Yep. I love anything that gets down the rabbit hole and gets me lost. Unfiltered Rise, everywhere podcasts are served. I definitely am all about the JFK right now, not just I could care less really who pulled the trigger. I just want the background, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, all that stuff. And of course, Mormons, because they're always involved. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. And Nick, I'm obviously partial, but I thoroughly enjoyed the series we've recently done here with Heidi on the Occult Rejects regarding all this Mormon parapolitics.
Yeah, that is some deep stuff. I mean, really, taking her series and Justin's series, I should tell you right there, something severely wrong with the situation.
Right? We're only halfway through.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And isn't it weird, these things relative? Oh, go ahead, Nick. What was that?
It's not a religion.
No, it's well, I mean, it's something, or it's an ancient alien cargo cult, right? So the one thing that I find fascinating with all these topics from the 1960s and 70s surrounding Howard Hughes, Permadex, JFK, all RFK stuff, all of this stuff, seems relevant still today, given the characters involved, right?
Oh, for sure. Roy Cohn's all over that. And then we get that. Who does that go to? Not the vice president, but the president.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding. Weird.
We were just talking about that picture you shared on that last show. We were talking Roy Cohn when he's got I think it's Roy's 52nd birthday at Studio 54.
Oh, yes. People said that's fake. It's real. You guys can look that up. It's real. Yep. He dressed up for that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, I'm familiar with that whole party. That's the Studio 54 party for his birthday. I mean, it's in studying Roy Cohn, because David Berkowitz claims he was a member of the process. So, in a signed memorandum in the 90s, so that obviously I was interested in Cohn beforehand, but that takes it up a few notches, from Permandex to the Son of Sam, apparatus in the 70s to Lord knows what else in that scene that he was involved in, but the man's everywhere.
Puharich comes up, and who is Puharich? Like, attached with this whole thing with the other guy that kept Bryant, and then Bryant's attached with the Boston Strangler. I just say it's everybody,
right?
All of them.
Well, who do you think replaced Roy Cohn in the network? Right, he died back in '86, right, of AIDS. He obviously someone replaced him in the that scene, or that cult scene, or the gay underground mafia scene, whatever you want to call it, or this Wetwork guy. See, I mean, he was connected to everything. He was the legal counsel for the McCarthy hearings.
That's right. Dirty deeds done dirt cheap. He's all over that. Yeah. He's everywhere, man. And it could be somebody that is religious, right? Because he did have a huge religious background, despite not being religious himself, right? They owned a bank. They had a Jewish background. So yeah.
What about Roger Stone?
You think?
That's who introduced Donald and Roy Cohn, right? Was Roger Stone.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's how
they met.
What do you think, Nick? Who do you think replaced the old Cohn, where knows where all the bodies are?
I don't know.
I don't know, right? All of them.
To even guess who could be doing that.
Well, speaking of the mob, and not too far separated from all this cult business, there's a fella in Hollywood called Norby Walters. He did something for like 50 years called the Best Dressed at whatever, the Emmys, or name whatever godforsaken award show they do there. But this dude was big in popularizing fashion and stuff like that. You know, he was the go-to guy. Well, when he passed the torch on to Roger Stone, which I find interesting because Norby Walters was deeply connected to the mob. In fact, he did some time along with old Michael Franchise, the guy who's the underboss to the Colombo crime family. When I say the underboss, Sonny Franchise would do such weird things as financing the film Deep Throat in 1972, the first pornography, which premiered at a Process Church Theater in West Hollywood. So a lot of these, it's not that far off from all these weird activities. You know what I mean?
Well, just new players all the time. Yeah, they just get new bodies in there, right?
Yeah, but so Roger Stone seems uniquely like sitting in a weird position politically, kind of, you know, underworldly. You know what I mean?
Yep. The underground. It's a whole nother world that we don't always get to see, but it's definitely there. It doesn't go away. I find it interesting. I wonder where Jared Birchall plays into all this. You know who I'm talking about?
Jared Birchall. Right? Who's
Elon
that?
Musk's financial advisor that doesn't deserve to have that position by schooling. He is Mormon, and he is Elon Musk's financial advisor. So I do wonder
if Neuralink, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow, look at that. Look at that.
They met at the Boring Company, digging holes together, kind of like our friend Joseph. Yeah.
Like a good Mormon, he's an Eagle Scout, right?
Oh, he's a good boy, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure he served an overseas mission, probably.
Like a good Mormon, got to get that Eagle Scout, right?
There it is. There it is. Yep, you got to do it. My husband's an Eagle Scout.
So what's his relations to Frank William Gay, the guy we've been talking about with Hughes?
Gay is not a part of him, but I do know the Gay dynasty lives on. The Gay dynasty lives on.
Well, I asked that because, I didn't really know a lot about the guy. I learned a lot from you in that series, Heidi, but I'm scrolling through here at the bottom of this Jared Birchall Wikipedia entry, you know, the source of all information on the interwebs. It says here, see also Frank William Gay, an LDS member who was a corporate aide to Howard Hughes. Are they just making a relative comparison, you think? He is the Elon Musk as Gay was to Hughes?
I don't know. So we're going to have to check that out. Yeah, really I do know that he did get the position very much like he did because he was just, I couldn't help it.
Yeah, you typed it in too. You were too much. Funny.
I am the worst. It's good. It's mostly the boys tonight and me, you know. Yeah. I sometimes get myself in trouble, but that's okay. Yeah, I think that he was just an errand boy, you know, for Hughes, and then ended up basically running his whole fortune. So, dun da da, you know.
Well, it sounds like a good Eagle Scout like this Jared Birchall guy. I don't know much about him, so what are your thoughts? Where he came out of nowhere, huh?
He did. They worked at the Boring Company together. He doesn't. All I know is he's unqualified to run the position that he's in. And that he's an LDS guy. Very LDS. You should look at his picture. He looks like he just stepped off the freaking Mormon magazines are us. It's great. Yes.
I got it right here.
He's white and delightsome. Definitely.
And also like a good Mormon, he likes to dig for treasures, it sounds like.
See? White and delightsome. Look at that smile. Trustworthy. Yes. Look at that guy. You never know. They're the nicest people, don't you know?
They look like an interesting combo. I don't see these two fitting in well together. So it does seem like, as you're describing Gay's relationship to Hughes, I can definitely see that with this guy, right? Because Elon
Are you
Musk
saying it's a gay relationship? Is that what you're
like
saying?
The gay like the William Gay.
Oh. It's not like JD.
I knew what you meant.
Right.
I'm just being a smart aleck. Okay, I'll stop it.
It just seems like Elon Musk has long been a front man, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, everybody's like, he's the smartest person ever. I'm like, yeah, he didn't discover any of that stuff. So
no, he's never no. Well, he did help invent the credit card systems to pay for pornography in the 90s with his brother. That was the original X company.
Well, that's the only thing, because he didn't invent any of the rest of the stuff he says he did. So
it would later become PayPal once Peter Thiel and the CIA came in with some money, right?
Exactly. The CIA is always there to back their little buddies of the LDS, because I think this is what it is. The LDS has 3 letters, and CIA, FBI, it fits in. They're like, yeah, they're one of them.
Some handsome young gents, isn't it, Heidi?
I mean, right? Look what money can buy. Not nearly enough. Oh, poor Elon. And these are the people that want to clone themselves, y'all. They want to run the world.
That's weird. Yeah, that's some wild shit.
Nobody needs that hairline.
Oh my gosh.
Not even Elon. Clearly he didn't like it either.
I mean, it's frightening on both ends, honestly. Like the other guy's teeth, I don't know. But despite the looks, we all have our weird little whatever about us. But I'm just saying, I don't know that I would clone myself a whole bunch if there were issues, right? And you weren't smart as everybody thought you were. But who knows? Stranger things have happened. I did find a strange rabbit hole that I might want to go down before we do the MLK one, because I found a weird thing about Howard Hughes and time travel. Y'all hear about that?
No.
Well, it's a whole thing. So I'm going to be deep diving that before I go too far into it, but I'm sure the Mormons pop up because you know how the Mormons love space. And there was some weird stories that I've heard. So yeah, we'll be doing that one too. And Martin Luther King, of course, but they're involved in all of it all the time. And people are always like, it's the Catholics, it's the Jews, it's the this, it's the that. And I'm like, it's all of them. It's all of them. They're one big friend.
You know what I do find interesting? I do not saying that we have to get into this idea area of mine.
We're not derailing.
I think it is something that JJ has even noticed. If you want to start taking certain conspiracies out there that are kind of like hugely believed and start throwing them into people's ideas of what they think their version of Christianity is, you actually have a lot of people, conspiracy theorist podcasts, in my opinion, that are actually a lot more aligned with Mormonism than they think.
Oh, well, I mean, it
might sound controversial to start saying right now.
Yeah, it screams of Gnosticism.
Including certain conspiracy theory ideas. You're actually going towards Scientology and Mormonism.
Yep.
Yep. Well, they're both very Gnostic. Heidi's right in that respect. L. Ron Hubbard and his Prison Planet. Like Alex Jones, like to copy with PrisonPlanet.com.
We have a Prison Planet. It's Outer Darkness.
It's the same difference, right?
I'm going there. Apparently, that's what they tell me.
Well, there's really no hell. There's really no hell in Mormonism, is there? It's just lower levels of heaven.
I mean, outer darkness is the absence of anything, including your connection with God. So I guess that would be your own personal hell. But that's very eighth sphere. That's very Steiner. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought it was just like you had like heaven, and then you had like a little bit shittier version of heaven, and then a slightly shittier version of heaven than that.
No, that is true. And then they're for apostates and murderers. So I go with the murderers because that's how bad I am. Yeah, because apparently.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
This is like the tone scale of Scientology, where all journalists, investigators and homosexuals are all like the bottom of the level. They're like tone scale 0 or whatever.
That's what it is.
It's basically their hell is their. That's the Scientology's version of hell when they don't have a heaven and hell. They put you in like a living hell situation. Because those are the people that hate the world the most. Psychiatrists would fall in that category.
I definitely know Mormons say like if you're an alcoholic, then you'll be in the lower level and you will want to drink and you'll have a drink and you won't be able to drink. Like you'll just be like,
Yikes! I must have tapped out in Sunday school on this lesson plan because I don't recall this at all, Heidi.
Yeah,
this doesn't sound fun.
Did you remember do you remember the video where they were building the Salt Lake Temple and the rocks were flying without anybody doing anything? They were magically appearing to the temple and it made the boing sound. It's very cool. Recall that very Gnostic. I've got to find that one. If anybody knows the name of that cartoon, please send it to me or tell me the name because it was weird. Yeah, it was weird.
Well, when you talk about all this Mormon parapolitics and all their weird magical stuff, I'm definitely into the weird magical stuff. And I think there's a lot more of that at the origins than we even understand today, because I think their origin story is dubious as can be. And when you're talking all this parapolitics stuff today, I would say what the more important factor is the Society of the Cincinnati. That's the secret society that started America by George Washington and his officers, and the descendants of which are all members today. And I would say they've been feuding internally since around circa 1803, when Aaron Burr murdered the president general of the society, Alexander Hamilton, and tried to take over America. But that's only one example. But other examples are when hereditary members become running for president or become president. There's an element of the society that does not like that. I think oftentimes it's considered just on Freemasonry because folks don't understand the societies. For example, Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon Church, his grandfather was a captain in the Revolutionary War, right, Heidi?
Yes, he was. Captain Samuel Smith. Yes, he was a part of the Boston Tea Party.
So if it wasn't Joseph, it was one of his brothers that would have been a member, the hereditary member, right? So what it seems to be, I assume it was Joseph. When it seems to be when he was running for president, that's just too much. There's an element of the society that doesn't like this. And other examples would be William Henry Harrison, Abraham Lincoln. They're like, nope, this guy's got to go. Whatever this hereditary member becoming the president is, because as a president, you're a member, but for some reason, they don't seem like hereditary members becoming president for some reason.
Or at least maybe they don't like the divine right to rule. Maybe they don't like that.
Well, there's probably a bit of we don't want the whole America to be Mormon, because that was obviously Joseph Smith's plan there too when he was running for president, right?
Exactly.
And he got murdered.
So how quick was that after he started running too, JJ? It was pretty damn quick.
Yeah, they weren't wasting any time with it, right? They were like, this guy's got to go. So as you know, the Mormon Church story has been brought into question before, right? The origins.
Oh, yeah.
There was a book written, in the 60s about the whole salamander business, or no, I'm sorry. It was questioning the magic aspects to it. I think it was the seer stone, right?
And then, it was, yeah.
There's something with salamanders, though. You're right on that.
That wasn't until the 80s, I don't think, though. The 60s was the 60s was the seer stone, right, Heidi?
Yes, it was. Why can't I remember his name? I have the book. It's the magic one with the folk magic. He brings out the folk magic, and I can't remember his name right now, but he did get excommunicated for that.
It was a husband and wife, right?
Well, I think he might have started that way, but he was gay. Later, it came out that he was gay, but
maybe we're talking two different people. Who are you talking? Is his name Gay? Is this William Gay?
No, it's not. I'll Google my name. You Google yours.
Okay. Okay.
I'm like, the Magic World View is the one I'm talking about.
Oh, what's that one about?
Yes. Oh, magic. Yeah, the magic of the Mormon Church. It's a good one. You should, if you have not read that, you've got to read that by D. Michael Quinn.
Okay, well, I will definitely read that. I was talking about Mormonism, Shadow or Reality by the Tanners.
Oh, Sandra Tanner? Is it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Sandra and her husband Gerald.
Okay, they are not gay. I'm sorry.
Well, they might be. I don't know them. To be Heidi, I don't know these.
I was talking about somebody else, but it doesn't.
They could also be from the gay family. Then they could be gay. You never know.
Double gay, JJ. You should know.
Oh, guys, it's like the Zizians, where you have the good, bad, good. You have gay, straight, gay.
Everybody, we're kidding.
Yeah.
So this book went over many subjects. It says of a critical view, including the Book of Mormon, the Scriptures, Joseph Smith's life, alleged false prophecies, the missionary system, controversial historical incidents and subjects such as the Mountain Meadows Massacre, wealth, the priesthood ban, polygamy, and many doctrines and practices. So in that book was the first time I ever discovered any ceremonial magic stuff that anyone actually put in print or talked about, because I had questions. No one liked my questions about the aliens. No one liked my questions about the magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You wanted to know about Xenu before you got to there?
For sure.
You can't do that.
I had questions.
You can't skip.
You can't have questions. I had questions when they wanted tithing from me from my referee and umpiring, fees from I was like 14 and 15 years old. Someone narked me out to the bishop. They wanted some tithing. I'm like, let me see some books. You guys got a lot more money than I do, bud. Where's all this money going? You want my refereeing fees?
You said this at 14.
Let me see some books here.
Oh, this is so good.
You can say some shit
oh
like
my
that.
gosh. You can't say that, JJ.
To be fair about my financial intricacies of life, I was managing the U.S. Air Force military police budget by the age of 29, at headquarters in D.C. So it's kind of just been my thing with money and numbers. But yeah, the Mormons don't like you asking questions like that.
Yeah,
I would assume they did not like that. And plus, don't you know, JJ, you have to go to the temple to ask the questions in the temple room, or you're busy, then you can never ask the questions. That's how that works.
I can't believe they ever let me in a temple. I went to the DC temple twice. I went to the Chicago temple twice.
Oh, I heard the DC temple's some shit.
It's fancy.
They got the president.
Fancy.
They got a president office up in that. You know that?
Yeah, it's real fancy. That?
No, like they
got
have
a lot of weird stuff going on there, if you ask me.
They have a full presidential room mocking a presidential Oval Office because someday the church is going to rule America from there, and I'm not playing.
That sounds like the stuff Scientology does. L. Ron Hubbard's got a room and office in every Scientology, like I don't have every building, but numerous buildings in numerous continents, right? Because when he reincarnates, he's got to have all of his old shit, including his old smokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. See, that's what's up.
So I'm sure Joseph Smith's got some stuff like that, right? Maybe even Brigham Young, right?
It's probably all the knowledge is in the canes. That's my guess. The dead people canes with the hair.
So, what was the name of this book again? You were describing, Heidi?
Oh, Magic Worldview by D. Michael Quinn.
Magic
Worldview. That is quite. And actually, it's actually better because of the fact that he wrote it while he was an active member for the church, and then they were like, I don't know if they didn't proofread it. Like they were like, what the hell is this? You're out. And so, yeah.
Wait a second. So this was like it started out as an officially sanctioned book?
Yes.
Yo, that is funny. What do you like, troll him?
Right.
It's big time crazy. And then, so everybody got a hold of this that I know of. And then, I mean, they didn't go Solomonic magic, which is the truth. They made it nicer. They were like, it's folk magic. It's just folky.
Okay.
Yeah.
They churched it up.
Yeah. They made it sound all like nice, but no. It's not.
Yeah, so I mean, there's been other books written since then, right? Because I guess Peter Levenda wrote his after 1998.
Fantastic. Levenda did a great job. Yes.
So which one what's comparatively speaking here, Heidi? What are we talking? I mean, I'm gonna read this book anyway, and I enjoyed Levenda's take, but comparatively speaking, what are we talking here?
I mean, he's the Mormon, so yeah, he has an upper hand. It's very good.
But do they give it a very similar approach as far as the
he let it out, yeah. Oh, he let it out. I was shocked when I read it. I was like, is this for real? Like, what? And the only thing they did is say, like, no, it's just folk magic. Everybody did it back then. Don't you know? And I was like, kind of looks like Solomonic magic to me.
They went through. That's all it was.
Yeah, it was his teenager era.
Yeah,
literal.
We wore some weird clothes, some makeup. The years were over.
I mean, to a certain extent, there was Vermont at that time when he was growing up was a hotbed of magical activities. You can call it folk magic or whatever you want. Today sits a giant dick statue at his birthplace.
Do you know about this statue? Did you see this stone? Oh, it's not in Washington, D.C. Never mind. The one in Washington, D.C. has everybody sent
the
a
DC
block.
one?
Yeah, every state sent a block. Did you see the one Utah sent? It's amazing.
I got the Washington Monument? Was that what we're talking?
Yeah, so I believe that's true. I'm pretty sure that's right off the top of my mind, but it's one. I'm almost certain. And every state sent a block for a stone for it, and Utah hadn't become Utah yet, so they sent one that said Deseret, and they've got the all-seeing eye on it. It's the best shit you've ever seen. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm gonna get a picture.
I didn't know that story.
Deseret.
Yeah, it's weird. Wow. It's amazing.
It's the Washington Monument. Really, that's interesting.
It's very fun. Yeah.
Well, here's a Salt Lake City fun fact of George Washington. I don't understand the ins and the outs or what have yous, but there's a whole lodge system within Freemasonry called the George Washington Lodges.
Oh.
And there's only like 13 of them, and one of them is Salt Lake City, Utah.
Of course. You guys know they had a Paracelsian museum here for a while, like a long while.
Really? Damn.
Yeah, they did. Yes, they did. See, here it is. We're the worst. Sorry. No. But yeah, no, they really did, and it stayed here for a long time. It's very strange. They actually say there's some alchemical, like literal laboratories if you know how to follow the signs. So we should bring Nick here and all of us go on a field trip. Me, you, Nick. Yeah. Let's go, JJ.
Bring a drone. So, I've said before, even just with my drone, I've caught stuff where it's like there's like geometry or something going on here with the way stuff is built.
They said it leads straight to like a weird alchemical.
You'll definitely start seeing things like. Yeah, I've literally I don't know. I think I hope to God I saved it, but there was like a time where I was even going through like some grimoire or something, and I like literally found I think the design that is over by New Haven Greens Park. It almost looks like a unicursal hexagram, but it's like off-centered. It's not exact, and you can definitely tell it's off. And I found like that same symbol in the grimoire, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
You're like, "Why is that there?"
I was like, I wouldn't have known that unless I sent my drone up and saw it myself.
Well, how about the priesthood symbol being the sign of Mammon? You guys like that?
What's the sign of Mammon? What's this? I'm not familiar with that.
The sigil of Mammon. It looks exactly like the priesthood symbol. It's pretty awesome.
The sigil of Mammon.
Yeah, Google that up. It's missing the internals, but the external of the whole setup geometry-wise is exact, and then they just took out the middle. But I bet it's there, and I bet they hit it.
Which priesthood are we talking about? Melchizedek priesthood?
Melchizedek.
Yep. They schooled me pretty good there. I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning for seminary. You know what I mean? They indoctrinate you real early in the morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
You had the early morning program?
Oh, yep. I did the whole 4 years. Oh, yeah. So this is exactly the sign of the Melchizedek priesthood without the center, without the symbols in the center, but the geometrical signs are exact. If you pull up the Melchizedek, I will
bring us up a comparison here.
It's pretty fun. I've been playing with it quite a bit. I'm like, they're not hiding everything. Well, they might be now, but who knows? Whatever.
Don't do these things. This is it right here, though. That's the same image.
Yes. Yep. Except it does not have this scary part in the middle. Yep.
That reminds me of like a ladder.
But look at how this looks like a beehive, though.
Yeah. Or to me, it even does look like very like almost because I just finished doing the notes and finally, yes, I'm gonna do it solo. I'm recording Robert Flood finally on the Occult Rejects, and he does have a few like images where there is like a ladders going up to like the clouds and the sun or like an all-seeing eye, and not that it's angled the same way, but it does kind of look like that. It does even possibly look like that, a ladder extending to the heavens.
Yeah, it doesn't have this in the center, of course, because we can't be that outward, but the actual symbols, the two squares, the stacking stones, right? Yeah, it has that for sure. And also remember,
is this what we're talking right there?
Yep.
Yeah, I see you're saying it is the general outline, isn't it?
Yep. They can't put the middle. There's no way they're going to put the middle.
Right. Well, you got to learn that. They give you the middle later, right? They give you the donut hole after you join.
Exactly. They're not going to put that out there for everyone to see. But the shape, as soon as I seen it, I was like, oh, okay. And we do have the law of prosperity as Mormons, right? What do they teach us? So interesting. They are one of the wealthiest churches.
Or was that the Vulcans?
They want you to go forward.
Different alien stuff.
They want you to go forward and be prosperous. Make money.
Oh, sure. Well, that's how they got out west, right? Go forward and be prosperous.
Yep.
Why the symbol appears 10,000 times in the San Diego Temple? Why does that symbol appear 10,000 times in the San Diego Temple?
Why does it indeed? I mean, it's very interesting, right? When you start going through it, it's so much fun. It's just like, okay.
Seems a bit much when they put erected on the dick statues. You know what I mean?
It even looks like
they're erected.
What were you saying, Nick? What is this symbol to you, Nick? Look at all this business. It's everywhere.
Yeah. When I first saw it, I don't know why, and I don't think it does, but I did think of like the chakras, but I don't think that does match actually.
It is literally everywhere at least the San Diego Temple.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's all over the place. Yep. It's weird. Like why? But it's just for for people that say they don't believe in astrology or symbols or don't do any of that. It's kind of strange.
They don't believe in magic.
Well, maybe, but maybe it's under wraps.
Magic,
right? Brigham was like, "Shut that up! Shut up!" Yeah.
So this was Joseph Smith's grandfather, right? Captain, like you said, is Ashel Smith.
Yep.
And like I said, he would have been he'd have been an original member of the Society of Cincinnati, the Massachusetts chapter.
It's funny that they spelled it that way because anywhere else that I've seen it spelled, it's Asael, like Azael.
Well, what's this? What's this spelling do? What's that one about then?
I just think it looks less like Azazel. I think they might have tried to make it look better. Who knows? But
it's a biblical name, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it was King David's youngest son.
But it's interesting that it's also really similar to a fallen angel.
Well, that is curious. That is
curious indeed. But yeah, whatever.
The Smiths would migrate to Sharon, Vermont, there in the southern part of Vermont. His father, Azazel's son, there. And then in 1830, over by the Finger Lakes of New York, as the story goes, right? Joseph Smith would create what would be known as the Mormon Church. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's April 6th, 1830 in Fayette, New York. So I found these details interesting in studying the society and early Mormon stuff, because obviously Joseph's family being of the society lineage there, with his grandfather and his father and his brothers all being involved in the early Mormon church. So somebody's a member of the society there. You know what I mean?
You know who it probably was Uncle Johnny, that was the first professor of Dartmouth.
It could have been him. Sure.
It was my guess. Yeah.
So you have the society family going to Fayette, New York, which is a society founded town named after General Lafayette, the French leader of the society. Previous to that, it was named Washington, New York, because it was named after George Washington, the American leader of the society. So obviously I don't have any records that there's a mound here where Joseph Smith started this, because once again, the Mormons aren't going to be like, hey, yeah, we started this on a mound right here. They deal with enough mound stuff considering the Hill Cumorah story, right?
Right.
So what's always been curious to me is, so they call it the Church of Christ, right? What's that about?
Well, so his uncle Johnny at Dartmouth had a church named the Church of Christ before Joseph was ever a thing. And it had, curiously, many of the teachings, and they were very Campbellite in nature. But also, I think that Joseph took it a step further. You're mentioning a lot of French influence, and I do believe that Lumen Walters possibly influenced Joseph Smith with Martinism. And I think he took it to the full level with magic. That's my guess.
Oh, with the French society. So the Society of Cincinnati was one chapter for the original 13 colonies. And the French had a chapter, but the French may as well just been over here too, because France kicked them out of there in 1792, and they weren't allowed back in until 1925. So all those French guys. I mean, Napoleon was a French side of the Society of Cincinnati. So when he took over, he let out the generals that hadn't been guillotined, like General Lafayette, and they all lived in exile and whatnot. But yeah, the French. The king they put in charge of there, who was also a member of the Society of Cincinnati, he was a turncoat on the rest of his buddies there. He, King Louis Philippe II, he was the one who apparently wanted to kill all of his buds and put them in jail. But yeah, when Napoleon took over, he was letting folks out and whatnot. But everyone lived over here in exile, even Napoleon and Napoleon's brother. Some arguments have been made that Napoleon lived here in exile as well.
Very curious, with the story that Joseph Smith claims to be a Merovingian.
Both sides. These French folks are all the same bloodlines, right? Same stuff. All these society families are, right. So they all come from the same place, right? In fact, one of the characters I wanted to discuss here was, he's a forefather to so many people, including basically anyone who's a Mormon leader, right? And I believe you said this was a forefather to you, right, Heidi?
That I was going to check, and I didn't. So I am Campbell's, I am Morgan's, I am Taylor, and I think those are the three main.
Okay, well, as far as the early leaders go, he's the forefather to Joseph Smith, Hiram, Wilford Woodruff, Oliver Cowdery, Parley P. Pratt, and Orson Pratt.
Okay.
This is John Lothrop. He was the early clergyman there in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. But as you can see, he's the forefather to Fillmore, Garfield, Grant, Roosevelt, both Bushes, Benedict Arnold.
Oh, wow.
The Dulles brothers, Ezra Taft Benson.
Of course.
Wild Bill Hickok, George the Romney boys, the Huntsmans. You were talking about the Huntsmans before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
very wealthy billionaire Mormon family who invented styrofoam. Am I correct?
I did not know this one. I know they invented television, which is fantastic.
Yeah, John Huntsman's dad had like the exclusive contract with McDonald's for all styrofoam products years ago.
Weird.
They made that big McDonald's styrofoam money.
Oh, why does that not surprise me?
Chemical company, right? I don't know if they invented it, but they definitely were making a lot of money from it, right? You know what I mean? Clint Eastwood, Kevin Bacon, Jake Gyllenhaal, Jeffrey Dahmer, right? So if you're descended from this dude, Heidi, you're distant cousins with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Ugh. Wow, that's not good.
I'm in that same boat. So you'll see Ulysses S. Grant on there. That's through his great grandmother Martha Huntington. That's also one of my foremothers.
Oh, I am related to Huntington. I know that for sure.
So the Huntingtons are from Lothrop. There, the Lothrop. That's what I'm saying. He spawned 70 people in this country. He's not the only one of that era, but he's one of the major ones of that era, right? Where you see all these descendants from. But one of his descendants
they spread it, yeah. They spread it around, right? The Mormons.
One of his descendants they definitely do that, especially, wow, there's still some huge families today, so it hasn't really changed, I guess, right?
Nope.
So one of Lothrop's descendants there was this fellow, Elias Buell. This is my forefather, who was the son of Martha Huntington. He'd been the great uncle of Ulysses S. Grant. He was a major in the Revolution out of the Connecticut militia there, and his unit would serve as a security, essentially security force, or there was no Secret Service back then, but a security force for General Washington there in New York City. And Buell's kids would intermarry with his boss's kids, Jesse Root, who was the general in charge of the Connecticut chapter of the Society of Cincinnati. So this dude was connected in those regards, but through John Lothrop there, he's not that distantly related from Joseph Smith, right? He's second cousins, I think 3 times removed, or third cousins twice removed. One of the I think that's what it was. One of those two. I did the genealogy. I forget the precise ones. I'll look that up here as I'm hammering. But I would say this dude was in the know, giving all these other Society Cincinnati relations, giving this dude's connections. But when he dies in 1826, I think it's 1826. Yeah, he lived from 1737 till, well, this isn't telling me here. When did you die here, buddy? 1824 in Albany, New York. So by way of Vermont. So he settled a town in Vermont called Huntington, Vermont. There's disputes on how the namesake of it, but he's the guy who had the land grants following the Revolution, and it's named after his mother. So, in my opinion, anyhow, he ends up dying in Albany, but on his last will and testament. Now, I don't know when this was written on there. It could have been scribbled in there later afterwards. Who knows? But on his last will and testament, again, he dies in Albany. Last will and testament, he says, "Don't let the Mormons baptize me for the dead."
Good idea.
Right. But if Joseph Smith is inventing the Mormon Church in 1830 as the Church of Christ, right? Just east of Albany, or just west of Albany, a couple hours, right? Also migrating from Vermont, just like Buell, and also family of Buell. So those migrations were similar time frame as well. How does Elias Buell, want to not get back? What's he saying? No necromancy there, Mormon folk. 1824.
Oh,
when they didn't invent it for 6 more years.
So who's doing what, where, how?
Right. Well, yeah. What is this origin story of the Mormon Church? Right. So what's the official narrative there, Heidi? Just many folks the interwebs are not familiar with the origin story, the 1830 version.
Yeah, one of 4, at least 4 that we know of.
Yeah,
about.
You were saying his uncle had a Church of Christ earlier, but then Joseph starts this Church of Christ. So was there any connections there?
Oh yeah, I do believe so. So it's the Dartmouth college connection, which nobody wants to talk about really, and that's that. People say it's a blip that Hiram went there to the Indian school, and I was always like, why is he at an Indian school? Like, it never quite made sense to me. And then I started looking, and Nathaniel Smith is actually the doctor that saved Joseph's leg. And Lucy Mack Smith's book, which, by the way, Brigham tried to burn out of existence, she states that Dr. Nathan came and saved his leg, and everybody was kind of like, okay, why doesn't he have a last name? Well, he doesn't, because it's her own. Do you think you would forget your own last name? That seems rather strange. Yeah. And so, that's who she calls on, is Uncle Johnny Smith and Nathan Smith. Well, I figured out probably why. Number one, Johnny Smith's whole background goes clear into a good basis for a lot of theology, but also the Indian College at Dartmouth was to train them to be basically priests to these Native Americans. So almost a Jesuit school, really. And he went there not for a blip. He went for 4 years and he was almost done when there was a huge problem. Remember, I said Nathan was a doctor. Well, back then, bodies are kind of hard to come by. You're trying to teach people medical things. And so they were known as grave diggers. And, it was really weird to think that I know some other people that were diggers and never found any gold, but maybe they sustained themselves another way. They did sleep by Alvin's body for 5 weeks and ran in the paper that they would be there. And so that makes a lot more sense now, maybe wondering if they made their money a different way. They did run him out of town, and he ran and started another college, a medical school. And this is Nathaniel Smith, and runs over to Yale. Funny enough.
It is an interesting dynamic in the background of this whole family, because he's certainly not a poor farm boy, right?
No. And these are and people want to say, well, this is irrelevant because they're cousins of his grandpa or something. But I'm sorry, they're from the same area. The Uncle Johnny lived like 5 miles away, and the other one lived like 30 miles away. It's really not like for where they grew up, all in Massachusetts. We get back to Inquisition land for this one.
Well, in comparative analysis, though, the Taft family would do the same thing, right? One would go to the northern route to Vermont kind of regions, one wing. One other wing would go to start Yale. One would be prominent Mormons on another wing.
Yep.
I'm sorry, start the Skull and Bones, not Yale, but start the Skull and Bones.
The Skull and Bones. Well, and then what do? Once we come out here, they come and sanction a chapter here. Has that ever been done before or since? Not to my knowledge. So it's because it's their family.
So in 1824, Joseph is what, 18 years old?
Oh boy, don't make me math.
No, wait, let me look it up. No, I think he's 20 years old. Because he had his first apparent Angel Moroni came the first time, right, when he was 16.
14, they say.
14. Holy smokes, he's a underachiever, overachiever. I'm sorry.
Overachiever. Yeah. Look at him go. Virgin Scryer.
So that's in Sharon, Vermont, right? The whole journey these folks take is interesting, really, if you look at it logistically, you know what I mean? Like, he's born over here in Sharon, Vermont. Like I said, Elias Buell would be right up over here, just north of there. And they'd migrate over the same pathway over through Albany, New York, right? I mean, these are the old pathways that they just built new roads on. There's, we're not inventing new pathways and new roads really ever in this country. The old footpaths across America from the natives became the old stagecoach pass, and they became the interstate highway system. So nothing new here, but they traveled a great distance, right? I mean, from Sharon, Vermont to Fayette, I mean, we're talking almost 280 miles or so, and then another, 60 or so to 55 to the Hill Cumorah, the promised land.
They did say that they were kind of trying to get away from this scandal about the grave digging, and she owed some people some money. They really gloss over this. You have to look hard for this information about this time frame, because they make it seem like he was born and then they moved and nobody knows why, and that's all. And there's this big, huge missing timepiece. Yeah.
So I often wonder if his cousin Elias Buell there didn't travel with the whole Mormon crowd out of Vermont. Like I said, the town he lived in, the Mormon side of the Taft family there, they all settled in up there. So if you go to that town in Huntington, Vermont, it's all Buell's descendants, and everyone else there is Tafts. And there's some intermarrying between the two in the town graveyard. Huh. So, that's what I'm saying. This early Mormon migration out of Vermont seems to me maybe more connected and earlier than we're told, and a different storyline than we're told, and probably far more magical than we're told, right?
Oh, definitely.
So you mentioned the Campbellites and relative to Joseph's uncle there.
Yes.
What's the story there? Because Sidney Rigdon was a Campbellite minister, was he not?
He was, and he was also his cousin. Yeah, wasn't he? Wasn't Sidney Rigdon his cousin? I remember correctly. Yeah, I think it is.
I know Joseph's related to the Pratt boys and Cowdery.
Cowdery is the one I'm thinking of.
Cowdery. I think those were his witnesses, right? His first witnesses of the golden plates, right?
Yep.
He recruits Rigdon over there, and strangely enough, this is how the story goes. He recruits Rigdon somewhere, maybe in and around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It seems.
Yep.
Sydney's
interesting. Yeah, Sydney's interesting.
Am I back? Did I make it?
You're back.
I'm back.
Yeah.
So I guess Rigdon was the minister of a Campbellite church. They swooped him up in around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I think, as the legend goes. And then these were the earlier. This is most of the congregation of Joseph Smith's early Church of Christ was Sidney Rigdon's entire congregation. Is my understanding, right?
Oh yeah.
And who were these Campbellites? Because they would later spawn the Seventh-day Adventists, to the Jehovah's Witnesses, and a bunch of other apocalyptic shenanigans, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, they do.
Well, I mean, it's always like, hey, the world's going to end, and when it doesn't end, and then like a contingent of those folks break off, and they all agree on a new date and a new leader. Well, it's going to end on this date, and then when that doesn't happen, rinse, wash, and repeat. There, it just keeps going, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to have a new date. We can't just end things. We're just a little off. We didn't know. They changed the calendar.
At least 20 years, so you can milk people pretty long.
Yeah. Fast forward to the 90s in the interweb connection or interweb era, you get, the purple robe, black Nike'd, Hell's or Heaven's Gate. I was about to say Heaven's Gate cult trying to catch a ride on a comet, on Halley's Comet. You know what I mean?
I mean,
it's the same theology though from these Campbellites, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sidney Rigdon's interesting. There's a lot of dark theories around Sidney Rigdon later, and so it gets weird. We'll see.
Yeah, he's kind of a shadowy character. I've always thought the same thing, Heidi, because they pick him up later on the trip, right? As they're always escaping all these towns for their hoodlum activities. It seems, right? That's Joseph and gang trying to swindle folks out of something, left and right. So it seems like they're always getting run out of folks. They pick this guy up along the way, and he's like, "Yeah, you can have my entire congregation." Like, what's that about?
Well, what's it about when you've got all these like kings and queens kids, and like later down the road, maybe not their direct kids, they got swindled here too. What are they promising everyone?
So
Solomon Spaulding went to school with at the same school with Hiram.
Right. So you're familiar with this character.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. So as the story goes, he goes from Church of Christ, picks up Sidney Rigdon, and then somewhere around 1832, maybe they're calling it LDS, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Mm-hmm.
So when did the Book of Mormon get written?
Oh boy.
And when did anyone see it that wasn't named Joseph or his cousins or brothers?
Well, I do know this. They only saw it with their spiritual eyes. And then anybody later, they were like kicked out. Everybody that actually said they saw it was excommunicated at some point. So
right.
1830. 1830 was the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, so it's right there when he's kicking it off in Fayette, New York, then, huh, as the story goes. So I wonder whoever, as you're saying, no one got to see the golden plates, but I wonder when they let folks see the actual Book of Mormon, because I really question that storyline, because they don't pick up Sidney Rigdon until some time later after 1830. And what's the story on Solomon Spaulding? Because this character runs in my opinion, this manuscript he wrote serves as the basis of the Book of Mormon.
Well, and he also went to school with Hiram at the Dartmouth Indian College. So, and their doctor there, Nathaniel, the Chases, the whole Chase people like that talked about him being magical and the affidavits and everything we bring forth. Well, he marries the Chase girl, the doctor does. So, I mean, just saying.
Yeah, so he's an interesting character, right? Yeah, Rigdon gets baptized in September of 1830. They're near Kirtland.
They're all together. That's what I'm saying for sure.
And so Rigdon comes from Pittsburgh on his way up to Kirtland to meet the Mormons, and this dude's from Pittsburgh, was living in Pittsburgh, died in Washington County, right? Is where he died. That's where dude was living, and he wrote this thing called. Are you familiar with this narrative? He wrote this thing called the Manuscript Story of Conneaut Creek, an unpublished historical romance about the lost civilization of mound builders of North America.
Yes, and they said that they just found it, and whatever. But they knew these people. It's not like they didn't know these people. It's a lie.
Oh, they absolutely knew each other, right?
They went to school together.
So what are your thoughts on this manuscript serving as the basis for the Book of Mormon?
I think whatever they used to fill in the holes between the magic that they performed, they used. I think that they were, oftentimes, and I know Nick can attest to this, like when you're reading something that is a magical working, it doesn't have to be a magical looking works. Like the people that know the magic will see it there. And that is exactly what I think it is. And I think this was the cover story. Like possibly.
Right. This is the warring natives. This is the mound stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is where all that narrative comes from. I mean, that's a great way to look at it, the filler, because this is literally the same tale. And again, as you point out, they know the Smith boys, and Hiram was just as involved in all this stuff as his brother Joseph.
Absolutely. He was the one that was almost a priest. So he's like nearly a Jesuit. I mean, he knew some things. And Uncle Johnny there, the uncle, he was like a master over languages. He knew like 30 different languages, I think they said. Like it was crazy. And they just skip over him. Like what the hell happened there? Like if they never had any interaction, that's fine. But where Hiram is literally learning underneath him. And what is Hiram doing? And this is when Joseph's sick and hurt. What would you bring home for your brother? What'd you bring home for your brother? A book, maybe? He owned the local bookstore.
Some magic.
Yeah. They said that the Scoticon disappeared when they left town.
So they never left town in any good fashion, did they? Anywhere they lived, did they?
Mm-mm. Nope. And they owed people
they had a
money.
reputation.
Yep.
So the other filler I would say for the Book of Mormon comes from this book, and back to the Society of Cincinnati. This is a founding father, Elias Boudinot, and he wrote a book called A Star in the West, a humble attempt to discover the long-lost 10 tribes of Israel, preparatory to their return to the beloved city of Jerusalem. So basically the philosophical and theological basis for the Mormon, as you put the filler parts of the Mormon system. And back to the Society of Cincinnati again. This guy was a member, an OG member, founding father.
The Society of Cincinnati, did they practice magic?
Yeah, I suspect that's one. I suspect that's one of their big secrets. So I've done actually my attempt at trying to understand not so much whatever their theology is, but just pointing out the other obvious occult patterns of their headquarters building and stuff, and the tour, taking the tour, seeing all their tapestries and whatnot. Myself and Recluse, the host of the Farm podcast, we did a tour, and we did our occult and or esoteric tour of the Society of Cincinnati headquarters. So they're an interesting bunch. Do
you think they're Martinists?
I think they've mashed together a number of theologies of an occult fashion in which to make their own. So seemingly based upon their own, imagery and iconography across their situations, they seem to venerate Diana, the hunting goddess.
Because the French, the French name, I just was like, this makes so much more sense because, the Martinists in France.
Well, I don't know a lot about it. So you told me about some of that stuff. So I'll have to look more into how deep it is in the French side specifically. But
that's where it mostly was like circulated around. Does Lumen Walters come up in this group? Is he a part of this society by chance?
I don't know that name.
Oh, Lumen Walters is fantastic.
But they also venerate Hecate, which is to me a very dark goddess, war goddess.
Right.
Lumen, like luminescent,
like light bearer lumen.
Right,
if you put in the like little encyclopedia. Look up there, Wikipedia. Lumen Walters.
Joseph Smith's mentor. Okay, yep.
He was an occultist, and yep. Yeah, all those things. It's super fun.
What did he do? He's from Litchfield. Okay, yep.
I think he might be a little key for you. He came back from France, dark and godless. That's what they said. And he was supposed doctor.
What was he doing in France?
He was traveling because he's a supposed doctor. Rich guy shit.
Was it okay? It wasn't a government or a Freemason thing or something.
So they say, right? It's very vague, but all of a sudden he pops up and they run him out of town because he's a godless occultist, fortune teller, bad guy. It's very interesting. I think he's the Martinus connection for Joseph, and if he'd just been in France, it makes complete sense.
Well, it looks like maybe Brigham too. He was Brigham Young's fortune teller. Is this a real story? Is this real life?
This is real. And they want this buried. You don't hear shit about Lumen Walters anywhere. So, yep.
Yeah, I'll have to do some genealogy on him and get back to you. He sounds like a character worthy of being from somewhere. This boy came from somewhere. I suspect he's probably have these same origins, these blue blood kind of society folks, right?
The joke book, the Book of Pukei, Pukei, that they did on the Mormons, do you know this story? No. So, okay. So Joseph took the book to get it printed, and the printer knew the family, and he was like, would you look at this shit right here? Like, I mean, serious, this guy was having a fit. And he was like, so he thought it was hysterical. So he made his own book, and it was like a joke book on Joseph Smith. And so it's called the Book of Pukei. And so he makes fun of Lumen Walters in it as well. And so Lumen pops up all over the place. And he's like, once I talked to my magician and it told me. He's like a total dick, the printer. And so after this, Joseph was like, that's enough. This is serious. This is serious church business, sir. So he went and got his little copyright so that nobody could make fun of him anymore. I'm not kidding.
That's a very power move right there.
Yep, got to do it.
So, from 1823 to 1827. I guess we skipped over this. This is when Joseph got real moundy like in life, and had these meetings with Moroni, Angel Moroni, from 1823 to 1827 in various instances in the Hill Cumorah. This is this is the Mecca site of the Mormons right today.
Oh yeah, he had to do that on the fall equinox too, when spirits can come through for Martinists. I think I dare say it took him that long to get the things he got, because he was perfecting like his, all the things you have to perfect before you can break through to your HGA. That's just my guess. I'm just saying, but
that's what I was going to ask you. So this is a very Crowley-like ritual, is my understanding from what you were describing before, right?
That's honestly, the more I study, I never thought it would go in this direction, but it did. And I was as shocked as anybody. But with D. Michael Quinn's work, and then the stuff about Lumen Walters, and then I deep dove Martinism on a tangent. I wasn't even trying to study about Mormons like at all. And boom, like all this stuff. And I just was like, oh, this is not regular Masonry we're talking about here. Because if it was just the Scottish Rite, it would be very early on at this time for it to travel clear here and to be organized, right? Think of this. Like, no.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is some network through the Society of Cincinnati, right? Whatever this occult,
I think so.
Occultism is. Well, many of these men are Freemasons, as I demonstrated. They're all society men.
Mm-hmm. I think you're hitting the nail on the head, and this is like goes into even more so why they're so involved in secret societies to this day, right?
Big time. And again, I can draw correlations to all modern day parapolitics in the Society of Cincinnati, including, basically anything, right? I mean, for the most part, including, let's just go with this one. So both the guys who took shots at Trump, right? Ruth and what's the other fellow's name? What's the weird looking fellow up there in Pennsylvania? Real squirrely looking guy.
The one that worked for BlackRock.
Nick, you know what I'm talking about.
Who? Talk about Luigi. Oh
no, the Trump shooter in Pennsylvania, the Butler Rally guy.
God, I can't remember his name.
Anyhow, they're both paternal descendants from members. I don't know if they're members, but they're both paternal descendants of original members of the Society of Cincinnati. So going back to their paternal line, you'll find a Lieutenant Ruth, and you'll find a Colonel, squirrely looking fella in Pennsylvania.
Squirrely.
In Washington, Pennsylvania, right where Solomon Spaulding and the Book of Mormon seems to have spawned. Same county, same time frame, right? Those are the guys that settled that area. That's the first free city in America. Washington, Pennsylvania, there in Washington County. First free city in America, settled 1783 by Clan Vance, just saying. Clan Vance is everywhere. That's what I like to say.
He's not the president either.
No, I'm definitely not the president. So it is weird president. Though. It does seem again like we can. I'm sure you've seen in a lot of your studies, like relative to the Howard Hughes situation and the stuff we've talked about on our Occult Reject series there with the Mormon stuff. Like these are the folks you're talking about are the Mormon pioneering families, right? That are involved in these activities out west and controlling kind of the power and politics out there, right? This gay fellow, for example.
Yeah, it makes so much more sense when you're talking about a group or a society, because I could never figure out why the hell all these blue bloods were like, yeah, let's just go to Utah, like from England, or mine were in South Africa at the time. But I was like, why would they come here? Like what? But it makes more sense if this was like a decision made by a society, right?
Yeah, and again, they're Freemasons, but they also have other stuff. Again, this was kind of some of their philosophies as published by one of their early members and a founding father of America, Elias Boudinot. This is what the Mormons adapted into their Lost Tribes, philosophies. So they did take the magical stuff from Freemasonry, right, and wrap that up into Mormonism and other magical stuff as well, as you're pointing out with these holy guardian angel things. So what do you think's what are the biggest comparisons between Crowley's holy guardian angel, ritual and Joseph Smith's here? What are we talking here?
Oh, they're very paralleled. I at least I feel. Nick, how do you feel about that?
No, well, when you kind of mentioned it that other time on the show, I don't know why it never clicked, but I do think Moroni would make sense that it was probably Joseph Smith's HGA.
Right.
Or something, that in a sense, yes, that's what I believe. That I could see that.
Yeah, I think it took him a long time because you have to perfect the rituals, and he was learning it kind of more so on his own at this point. Like, but
right. So the story goes it's 1823 to 1827. However, a couple hundred miles back there on the journey east where they just came from, a lot of fuel. The Society of Cincinnati connected dude as well to George Washington, to the the head of the Connecticut chapter. He's connected everywhere. He's cousins with Joseph and gang, right? Not that distant of a cousin, that is. And he's migrating west at the same time with these folks, and he dies in Albany, and he's saying, "Don't let them baptize me for the dead." So, this is a couple hundred miles away. A couple years later, really, because the first meeting he had, he didn't get any kind of Book of Mormon or anything from that, right? That didn't go well for it, did he?
Oh no, definitely not. Well, I mean, he was making such good friends with everyone.
So I really question this timeline. You know what I mean? I really question this timeline, given the Society of Cincinnati all around this business. Again, they found it in Fayette, New York there, which is, again, another society town. And right nearby to Fayette, New York, just to give you an example of how deep it was in society territory, Cincinnatus, New York, right nearby. That's next door. They have that. So we're talking heavy society territory. This is erupting from, again, Washington, PA, where Rigdon's coming from, and where that Solomon Spaulding fellow comes from. Heavy society country. Crooks.
Oh yeah,
Matthew Crooks, Colonel Crooks. That was the fellow's name. He was a society member out of Pennsylvania that was settled, one of the early settlers there in Washington, PA. His younger brother would be one of the early settlers of Cincinnati. Another society, Cincinnati headquarters. basically.
I think the reason why they so often pull apart from, why would you hide the fact that your grandpa, helped start the Boston Tea Party? Why would you hide the fact that he was Captain Samuel Smith? Why would you hide the fact that all of these things, like, this is not taught to us, where we're proud to be very patriotic as LDS people? Why would they hide that? Right. But it's all because it connects back to where? Massachusetts. And what does that connect to? Well, he was also famous for being involved in the Inquisition. And if you are practicing magic, what's the best way to do anything to deflect off yourself? Blame someone else. He had someone hung, he literally testified against her. And so, when you're talking about all of this stuff, it makes a lot more sense. Like, oh, that's why they don't want to bring that up. Let's not bring that up.
Well, Heidi, what you're describing to me, I kind of view as these same families within the society feuding amongst themselves prior to the Aaron Burr assassination of Alexander Hamilton. You know what I mean? Like, this is a what I'm saying, these are long-standing family feuds.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. It's wild.
And they, obviously there's some of the anti-Masonic stuff caused the Mormonisms to go underground, or their practices to go underground to create Mormonism. I do think that was part of it, right?
Well, you guys do know he married, spiritually married Morgan's widow, Joseph Smith.
Well, that's what I'm glad you said that. That's what I was going to bring up next.
little happy marriage. Smith. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Captain William Morgan, he would have been a member of the New York chapter of the Society of Cincinnati. So once again, we're talking society business, not just Freemasonry. Although that is what he got in trouble for, right? The printing of the Freemasonic stuff.
Not just plural marriage, polyandry. He was hitting up other people's wives. They were already married.
So what's the official stance from the mothership in Salt Lake City today? Did Joseph Smith have more than one? What they say? Yes, he did, right? But it was like he needed to. God said so, right?
Until I was 15, he never did it. He never did. He never did that.
They changed their stance, right?
I was like, what the hell is happening? And where did this hat come from? I thought South Park was a lie. And then that's what happened to me. They told me not to watch that. But yeah.
So they officially recognized Joseph had some plural marriages, right?
And polyandry. Yes, he was.
But they don't go into they don't go into the number, do they? They don't quantify this, do they?
Oh, I don't think they want to play with that. No.
Right.
No, I think they just, they hit it forever. I mean,
and officially he's got no extra kids outside of his officially, official children within the marriage, right? No bastard children, right?
Well, let's remember about who takes the blood samples, right? Let's remember. Oh, wait, ancestry.com, right? They don't own that, but where do they get their information? FamilySearch.org. And how many labs does the LDS Church own? Almost all of them. So good luck.
They don't own it anymore, but they definitely had an interest in it in the past. So they don't.
Johnny Cerruti. Right? Hello.
Yeah, I just saw that. I was like, oh, whoa! I haven't seen him in a while. I just saw that down there. Wow.
Yeah, I talked to him today. I popped in on his live.
Oh,
bastard kids! There you go. See.
Yep.
Yeah, he was on
Joseph Smith had to have a lot of bastard kids. Can we agree on this? Right? Like this dude's got like so many wives. There's no way he's not popping out extra kids.
Oh, that's so funny. He missed our gay talk already. He missed it. Yeah. Well, you have to do those things because if you don't, you can't hold it over anyone's head.
Right. So,
yes.
But it's my understanding that even though this was a common practice of polygamy there, right? It was only amongst the upper echelon, right? Even going into Nauvoo, so from Batavia there near the Hill Cumorah to Kirtland to Independence, Missouri to Nauvoo, Illinois. Nauvoo, Illinois apparently is when shit came to the surface that Joseph was banging everybody's wife, but that was because he kicked out the mayor of Nauvoo, right? I can't remember homeboy's name. But he kicked out old boy, and the old boy's like, "Well, that's it. I'm just going to tell everybody we've been banging everybody's wife," and he was doing it with him, right? I don't know at the same time, but it was practiced. He was the general of the militia, right, and the mayor of Nauvoo, and it was him, Joseph, and some others, but it wasn't the whole town, right? It wasn't a widespread practice.
And why would we
time,
even do that, right? Like, Nick, why would we even do that? But then you bring the magic into it, and then you're like, sex magic. Right.
Exactly. And I think Brigham Young tried to kind of whitewash all the sex magic aspects of it and try to make it a little bit more socialized with the plural marriages, right?
Let me explain about Brigham. He was an underperformer. Brigham Young had 55 wives and 57 children. That is not going forth and procreating, Brigham. That is hit it and quit it town.
Yeah, but his offspring are pretty talented.
He should have had like 200 kids in their eyes, right?
Well, okay, so my brother-in-law,
4 Super Bowls and some MVPs. I mean, that dude can throw a football. I mean, he's got some talented offspring.
My brother-in-law is Warren Jeff's nephew, and he grew up in a family with 3. He is Warren Jeff's nephew. My brother-in-law is Warren Jeff's nephew. And
yikes.
So yeah. So but he's a nice guy. He's out clearly. But he grew up with 3 moms, over 30 kids, just those 3 moms. So you're not performing, Brigham. Like,
right. But you see what I'm saying? He made it more of a widespread practice when Brigham's version of Mormon. So I view these things as Joseph Smith's version. Then you got Brigham Young's version, which became the major version, right? My back? Did I cut out of my back?
No, you never went anywhere.
Am I here? Yeah,
just like last time.
Is this real life?
Yeah.
This is well. Well, I mean,
is this real life with these Mormons procreating like fucking rabbits?
Right.
So
exactly.
It seems like the Brigham Young version. He made the more of the God made us all do this polygamy stuff, right? Where Joseph was like, we're doing this inner circle sex magic stuff. We're going to keep it real tight.
Maybe it was by the tip of a sword. Boy, where have I heard that before? Let me ask John D. Wait, what did John D say? If anybody talks to you about talking to angels and goes after your wife, you should be afraid. Quote from John
That's
D.
a good point. Solid advice, Heidi. Solid advice.
Yeah, exactly. They had to take this underground.
When Joseph Smith gets murked there in the Carthage, Illinois, in prison, and this is how Mormon I am. I've been to that place more than once. I've been my former mentor in the Mormon Church. He was actually the the district manager for the Hill Cumorah. I don't know. I forget the names of these positions.
Yeah,
regional director, if you will. So I've been to these places more than once. That's how Mormon I used to be. But
yes,
the Navajo, Illinois is an experience. It's like, it's a real interesting experience. I do recommend going there.
Mecca. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting, they've kept it at Williamsburg, like, kind of colonial times, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When he gets murked there and the rest of his family, who didn't get murked with him, gets murked shortly thereafter, his other brother, his nephew, etc. There's a real diversion with the church. Obviously, his other son takes the church, Joseph Smith III, right? He takes the church. They become the reorganized church, who's all but folded today, I believe, right?
It is. And then nobody ever talks about what happened to the youngest son, which is, what happened to the youngest son, right? Like, anyway, it's sad. He ends up.
What happened to the youngest son?
He ends up institutionalized for most of his life. They basically make him. Yeah, it's pretty sad, actually.
They gave him the Kennedy experience, right? Like they did to the Kennedy daughter.
And he was gay, I guess, and so it was a whole thing. It was sad. They actually called him the sacrifice, like the sacrificial one. So,
makes you wonder if he wasn't diddled as a child in some sort of weird sex magic ritual, right?
Well, I think he might have escaped it, but only because he was born after they were gone. So Emma had taken off, and she was pregnant, and they were already going to Utah. So
sure.
But yeah, it was sad. Sad. So
she went to Utah and her son went to Missouri, huh?
And so it gets weird. Yep. And then the whole way that they took over, the whole way Brigham got in. Did you hear that story?
No. What, please tell.
Okay.
I don't recall, at least. How did Steve Young's forefather win a Mormon championship here to get into the church?
Yes. Well, it was because somebody had a bad day, and everybody thought it would be Rigdon, and he kind of was sick that day, and so he didn't perform well. I guess they had like a little speech they got up there and did their speech and he didn't do well, but Brigham did extra well. But this is weird. I dare wonder if the brothers of Brigham helped him out in some ways this day, because they made it appear as if Joseph was speaking, and there were people in the crowd that completely attested that they saw Joseph Smith through Brigham Young that day, and that was why they knew. So,
that's a great storyline. They love their necromancy, right?
Of course, you gotta remember they love that stuff. They even heard it. They even heard the voice. So, the one thing with Lucy and her book, she kind of did a sneaky little thing there with this whole Dr. Nathan and Dartmouth. Well, she just says little things. She just says little things like, and then Hiram went to a school and Dr. Nathan came, but she forgot his last name, even though it's her last name, and all this stuff. And she's just playing little game with Brigham Young, like, pay me some money, bitch, or I'm going to burn your ass down. And that's what they say it was. And she got her money and he helped support her. And she deserved it, because let's admit, she lost almost half her kids and like her family and the brothers and the uncles and her husband, and I'd be pissed too. I get it, girl. She already wasn't.
So there wasn't that. You bring up a lot of good points regarding the turmoil of the immediate aftermath of Joseph Smith getting murked. Yes. He went from telling everybody he's gonna be president, running the biggest army outside of the U.S. Army, to being friends with Abraham Lincoln, for example. I think that's often overlooked. I suspect that's a Society-Cincinnati relationship. For example, Abraham Lincoln's law partner represented Joseph Smith in at least one court case, and it seems like at least one day Abraham Lincoln came to watch that trial. At least one day.
Very interesting.
So he had some good friends there that worked in, but again, Lincoln, being Society of Cincinnati as well, from his grandfather, also named Abe Lincoln. He was a member of the Virginia chapter, captain in the army of Washington's army. But so during this turmoil, we had numerous factions, right? This is one of my favorites, the Stringites. You familiar with that one?
Right? Oh yes, I'm getting ready to do a show about this.
Oh, fantastic!
Yes, not my show. Yeah, not mine. I'm having somebody from that area. Come on.
What are some of your favorite aspects of the Stringite factions?
I've not deep dove this. I just know the basics because he asked me not to do that. So He wants to come on and present. So I have
totally.
Not,
so
but
my favorite parts is this dude decided, I watched Joseph do it. I'll go do the same thing. So he went up to Wisconsin from Nauvoo there, and he found himself a mound up there in Wisconsin. Claimed to have found his own
sketchy
version
bitches
of the
up in Wisconsin.
Well, there's some sketchy mounds up there too. He claims to have found his own version of the golden tablets there in a mound there. Had his own little angel experience with Moroni, and started the Stringite faction, which still exists there today. And there's like 100 people.
Oh wow, that's it. Too bad.
But he literally followed the same playbook, right, as Joseph Smith, and it was like, hey, I got some golden plates here.
You want to hear from another one? I got an angel.
I got an angel. Let's talk some angel stuff.
People. There's lots of people talking to spirits. Just ask Crowley.
It is interesting. A lot of going back to angels. I mean, isn't that how? Even Islam came about.
All of them. All of them.
All of them. So many things go back to receiving a message from something.
Jehovah's Witness. Yep. All of them. So
strangely enough, much like
Book of the Law.
Go ahead, Heidi.
I was going to say one of my favorite comparisons is to say, okay, we start with John D, and he's talking to angels. He thinks it's a God thing, and then they're writing things down, and then push comes to shove. Then they're like, sex time, sex magic time, and then that's when every one of them are like, and then they do it, and it's with all of them. It's Crowley. What does he do? Same thing. He's on his honeymoon. There was already sexual magic happening there. I'm sure there was some freaky stuff, and he didn't care if it looked like an alien, because guess why? He wasn't afraid. So
talk about freaky aliens.
Like an alien. Same thought. Yes. And so, it is what it is. But
well, and on that note with the Stringites here, one of my other favorite parts is they followed the mothership in 1978 and started letting some black folks join the church. So that was kind of them. speaking to the white nationalist bend of the Mormons, and even in their offshoot factions that don't comprise a very large population, they're still doing that same nonsense, right? And they're still falling in on the same letter of the mothership, essentially.
And all of this part, right? All this old stuff about the church, all this is like more magical, but then later it becomes a corporation, and now they're just part of the New World Order, and they're all hooked together. Period. All of them. Like, that's why, it's just a big incorporation now, and they all hail to the beast. So period.
So when it came down to all this magic stuff so that was the 60s, that one book with the Tanners and folks. That was kind of the first anti-Mormon book published. Really, these folks kind of mentioned the magic stuff, but then the 80s come about with Mark Hoffman, and there was the Salamander letters, right?
Oh, yes, the Salamander letters. Oh, I think he was set up, man. Like I've said
what
before.
Did the Salamander letter, Mark Hoffman, who was later convicted of a large-scale forgery of a lot of old documents that he was forging and selling and whatnot, very lucrative effort, which he was definitely part of a network. I agree. He was the fall guy.
He's the patsy.
For sure. But what did the Salamander letter allegedly assert regarding Mormon history? As we were describing the dubious timeline and nature of Mormons, their necromancy may have been started as early as 1824, according to Joseph's cousin, Major Elias Buell.
Yes.
What are we talking here as far as this magic, though? This is what this letter said, right? It was basically an eyewitness to this holy guardian angel event you were describing at the Hill Cumorah, circa 1823 to 1827, allegedly. But it wasn't an angel, though, right? This, according to this business, it was magic stuff and lizard stuff, right? Frog stuff.
Well, here's the thing. What we know, I think the church pre-gamed this, honestly, and I think Hoffman was so wrapped up in what he was getting from the church because he was so involved with like, oh, give me more cool books, give me more cool parchments. He was really into all that, and he would trade fake things for real things, and we know that, or get money. But then here's the situation is I know for a fact there is a true story about Joseph Smith and a toad. And that is because of his treasure digging court case, where you can go look up the affidavit for the Chase. Willard Chase talks about this. There's all kinds of neighbors that went in and talked about this. And these are affidavits. This isn't hearsay. This is something that really was documented that this happened. And so a toad is very witches familiar. That is a more dark side of magic. Whereas a salamander, the salamander is more, it's not forged by the fire. We're talking about Rosicrucianism. We're talking about, it's a better thing. And I think they basically had Mark Hoffman rearrange that. They put it out because I've never seen the church jump on board on something so fast. They put it in their ensign. They distribute it to their members. They put
that's what I was going to say. They were talking about this from the pulpit, right? Like General Conference, right? They were, they were like,
absolutely,
this is legitimate, folks. Let's take it down a notch. This is legitimate.
Yep. This is real. Don't be doubting the salamander. And everyone that was magical in that room knew what that meant at that time, because the salamander is something totally different and represents something completely different. And so I think they knew. I think they pulled one on old Mark, and this is why. When Mark went to prison,
you're making a strong argument. So this letter, the contents of it, at least for folks of the interwebs unfamiliar with it,
yes,
the contents of the letter implied a magical aspect of Smith's life, a controversial subject debated amongst scholars of the Latter-day Saint history. The Salamander letter was supposedly written by Martin Harris and W.W. Phelps, an early convert in the Latter-day Saint movement. Now, Martin Harris was allegedly one of his apostles, right, who witnessed the actual golden plates, right?
And funded.
He's one of the three witnesses, right? Yeah.
He lost his farm for it and his wife.
So this letter is allegedly written by him, though, right? Saying this is what he actually witnessed instead of what the church says he witnesses, right? In that three witness situation, this letter actually says what he actually witnessed. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's what it purports to be, right?
Yeah.
That's what it purports to be, right?
Yeah. So, and then I do think what they did to him is they had him fix, quote unquote, fix this for them, because this is going to lead to the dark history that they've tried to cover up, that they are statesmen from Massachusetts, from Topsfield, Massachusetts, involved in the Inquisition, Captain Samuel Smith. And you cannot find that in his bloodline unless you trace up through Jesse, period. And so they want to get away from all that ugliness. And I think this was going to help them. But I also think they knew that he was screwing them, like as far as money deals and different things. Now, they'll say they never had anything to do with this because they'll say that it was a private bishop that purchased, but the church is known for doing this. They gave the money to the bishop purchased it on his own, blah, blah, blah. It's like a whole thing. So, with Mark, the interesting part is he sang like a canary after he went to prison. And then one day he stopped singing. Want to know why? Because he was in a maximum security area, clearly, because he was accused of murder. And he laid on the floor because supposedly he tried to Hillary himself. And he took a bunch of medicine that supposedly he had saved up, and he laid there for 12 hours. The only problem with that is you're in maximum security and they do rounds and they check on you and they have to document and all these things. It's a prison. It's not a camp. And so he's laying on the cold floor forever. And the only thing that happened to poor Mark afterward was that his right hand was completely neurologically damaged and he will never forge again. You tell me.
Yeah, that's convenient, right? So, the whole Hoffman's tale, I think you're pointing out some great points. We don't know the whole story yet, and there was a lot of folks that he was certainly the patsy for, but he got blamed for a number of bombings, right?
Yeah, he never talked again, ever, which is why we got the Lafferty story, because the Laffertys are a big part of what happened later with changing the temple ceremony. But the Laffertys were arrested, and the whole reason why we have that story is because they went, hey, you want to talk to some Mormons? We'll go.
Let's do it. Let's talk to Mormon stuff. So one of the things I find most interesting, those Tanner folks I was talking about, Heidi, they came out against the Salamander letter. The folks who published this, they were the essentially the controlled opposition of the mothership, writing this anti-Mormon book in the 60s. Come the 80s, they're like, wait a second, we're siding with the mothership. We think this is fake.
Yep.
When it came to that point, they were out against it the whole time, but eventually the church, when they declared it a forgery, it came about the same way that they're agreeing with the Tanners. I mean, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. Why would they agree with, yeah.
Why wouldn't the Tanners be on board for all this stuff? They already talk about the ceremonial magic stuff, right? So I guess
exactly
this is where I got the ideas of that manuscript from Solomon Spaulding, was from this book in 1834 called Mormonism Unveiled, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it also, apparently, as you were saying, this is what the Salamander letters allude to. This alludes to, a toad, as you were saying, a toad being involved, right? Where, as you said,
something like a toad turned into a man and punched him. Yes.
And as you were saying, they rolled it out in much church. They churched it up. They churched it up Salt Lake City fashion and called it a salamander, right?
Yes. Well,
because back as 1804, right? They're talking about this stuff in books, right? So people knew about this shit.
Yep. Some people, but remember how many, didn't want to look at anti-Mormon propaganda. I mean, so they could cover it up pretty easy.
Well, yeah, that's what I was getting at. Look at the power of this organization dating back to 1834, and most folks have never heard of this book.
Yep.
So what is this toad punching stuff, Nick? What's that about? What's toad fighting about? What does that mean, magically speaking?
I mean, I don't know.
Talking about kung fu fighting?
I mean, maybe this is where Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came from. I don't know.
Right. Well, we get into that weird frog thing, Keck.
I do think there's a lot. I think frogs, though, I mean, all joking aside, I do think that can get into some deep symbolism for multiple reasons.
And
we're turning the frogs gay, apparently, and not the gay Mormon family either.
Yeah, no, the dark. Well, and it's darker. Like, if you really know about magic, they would know that the darker parts are toad, cat, black cat, toad. Like, think of Harry Potter. What did they say they could bring? Right? Like a rat, a toad, or a cat.
Sure.
That's your three options, right? And an owl.
Yep.
And so it makes sense. And then when
Salamanders
you're talking about,
sound like a much more gentler option. They're a much more friendlier option. Much more Disney-fied option, right?
Well, they're a Rosicrucian tradition. That they're really symbolic for Rosicrucianism.
I did not know that.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
What are we talking?
Capable,
the toads or the lizards? What are we talking here? Lizard toads?
The salamander. Salamanders are a fire.
It's kind of a lizard toad, right?
Yeah,
salamander, it's the combo.
Because of fire. Yeah, I was just going to say that because of the fire symbol. I could see salamander.
Alchemy. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
That they can withstand the flame, and they are more pure, and it's not like witches. And remember what we're trying to stay away from, right? Captain Samuel Smith, the witch burner. I think that's what they were worried about. So
they can grow their tails back too. I'm sure that's some sort of magical understanding to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
With this regeneration, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they know what they're doing. They are sending messages all the time magically. Like, have you seen their Hosanna handkerchief thing, Nick? You seen this shit?
No.
Oh, the handkerchief wave. They have a nod to magic still. They just don't shove it out there for the Goyim. They took it underground, and they have these secret societies within the secret societies within the secret societies. Like, it's only for the elite now. That's just how it is. I think 100% they still practice this stuff. Why the hell do you think that the prophet's 100? He's 100.
Right.
Like, oh,
he's got that Mormon magic. I think that same Mormon magic that was used to fix Elon's hairline.
I mean, that's beyond magic.
Yo, Mormon magic, that ain't helping. That's
well, maybe it was, yeah. Oh.
Maybe that Pennsylvania Dutch magic.
Yeah, there is a whole for the people talking about the handkerchief. Go look at it's called the Hosanna wave, and they do it, and they shake all of them, all culty at the same time. Hosanna, Hosanna, and they do this weird thing. I'm telling you, it's
Thuggy Cali. I've heard of the Thuggy cult and Cali worshippers. Huh? They do the handkerchief stuff.
It's weird. Yeah, I just
sounds like some Pittsburgh Steelers terrible towel nonsense, if you ask me.
Well, and you can put magic into objects. It's a talisman. Like, let's be real. They're just hiding everything. They're hiding everything. Yeah.
It's all magic with these people, right? The Mormon mothership, that is.
Well, that's my opinion. Everybody thinks he was all crazy, or he just stole it from the one guy or whatever. But for me, I'm like, no, I think there has to be more to it. And the funniest part is what's his name? The West Memphis 3 guy.
Damien Eccles.
He has a whole episode on Joseph Smith and how he's like, Joseph Smith's a badass. And I was like, oh my gosh. When I seen that, I was like, okay, that's weird. That got weird.
Yeah, it does, right?
Was he giving him props for being a magician? Probably was.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Crowley talks about him being a moon child, and like all this stuff. He gives nods, and he even says at the bottom, people say that really wasn't about him. I'm like, yes, it was. Look at the bottom.
I've even noticed too, it would make sense is that I think Eccles a while ago was like pushing out t-shirts that had a lot of
he's got a podcast
sigils on them that were from planetary squares.
No, he has a whole podcast explaining all of it.
Oh no, I know. Yeah, no, he definitely knows what the fuck he's talking about, in my opinion. I think he understands magic. But I do know, like, he's big into the planetary squares himself, and so was Joseph Smith. So maybe he
he was like I watched the whole damn thing, and he's like, I'm gonna become a Mormon just so I can go in their temple. This is awesome. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna let Damien Eccles in there. Okay, they probably will.
Nothing like a convicted child murdering.
They don't mind. Right? He said sorry.
I wouldn't doubt it. They probably will let him in there.
I'm serious. They will let him in if he said sorry. Yeah. Whatever. It's weird.
Well, yeah. I think that's a good note to end it here. Damien Eccles, convicted child diddling kid murderer, ritualistic human sacrifice situation.
Yeah, how we got there.
Joseph Smith.
Sorry, that was me. I'm warped.
No, Heidi, great conversation. I appreciate you joining us here for Fridays. You got any closing thoughts here you can offer us?
No, I think this is amazing. I think you hit on a really big connection with this society, because it makes more sense I got to a certain point, and then I'm like, okay, it falls apart. Like, why? But why? Why are these people here? Right? Why is this these rich people or these royal people or these whatever? I couldn't figure it out. But if they're all in secret society together, this makes complete sense. So I absolutely appreciate that. It fills a big hole. And I think, like, they're globalists now. They don't hide it. I don't know if you've seen the plans for the new temple on closing. They have a United Nations flag display of all the flags, and they have it shaped like a big keyhole, like the Vatican. Looks just like the Vatican. And I have been
nothing
saying
to see
over
here,
and
folks.
over,
Nothing to see here. No comparisons.
no comparison. And I'm telling you guys, I keep saying that the Mormons have a key, and it's not the priesthood keys. So for that, I am definitely going to try to keep diving deep into all that. I'm sure you guys will help me. And this has been amazing, like every time we chat, and I've had a great time. So thank you so much. Thank you.
For sure. Absolutely. And looking forward to future Mormon conversations.
Absolutely.
Highly recommend folks go check out the series we did on the Occult Rejects recently with Mormon Business.
Absolutely. It's so much fun. Thanks again. Nick,
sir, great Fridays as always. What you got any closing words for the folks of the interwebs? What's going on with the Occult Rejects, perhaps?
Oh yeah, you know what? I was actually looking at stuff. We got Mormon Mafia Part 3 actually dropping tomorrow.
Wham! Oh, that didn't drop yet. Okay,
yeah, because I think we did it like last Saturday, so I had to drop it.
Yeah, you're right.
Whatever, I had to drop it this week. Yeah, so we got that coming out tomorrow, so everybody can check that out. We got
all about RFK. Yeah.
Too. Yeah. This was a really good episode too. It's got a lot of that. I mean, they all were, but this one has a lot of stuff in it, in my opinion. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So definitely check that out. And I see Giovanni Cerrucci in here. Holy shit, I haven't seen him in a minute.
So glad you came to see Johnny.
Past.
Yeah. Guys, you got to hit me up, man.
There it is.
Yeah, he's been on the show before, actually, years ago.
Thank you for coming, everybody, and watching us.
So yeah, and we'll definitely be doing more Mormon stuff soon. I guess, Heidi, we got a show of the Mormon Process stuff coming out soon, right?
Oh yes, this Sunday actually. So it's funny, you're doing Saturday, I'm doing Sunday, so
nice.
We're all over the place.
And
the Occult Rejects gone wild.
gone super wild recently on Ancient Alien Cargo Cults.
That's right.
So with the process stuff, when you're talking about the globalists, it makes a lot of sense because it makes a lot of sense with the discussion we have with the Mormons in the process and where they're located today, headquartered out of southern Utah, is because a lot of the early process OG members and later members or Society of Cincinnati families as well. So
and
it seems to be the connecting principles.
I think Nick said something, or maybe it was you on our last one about St. George. Was it Nick or was it you? But there's a St. George, Utah, and St. George was a very prominent member of the church. So it's kind of funny. Yeah.
And this element when I talk about these feuding factions within the Society of Cincinnati, one side is the Anglo interest, globalist faction. So what you're describing as these globalist interests you're talking about with the Mormons makes a lot of sense to me regarding these same groups we're talking about.
Oh yeah, they're all in it together.
Yeah, they're they're coming together like Voltron, Ancient Alien Cargo Cult style, but they definitely know each other. These folks definitely know each other, right?
Oh yeah, they're all putting their cards on the table.
We don't know each other. We don't know each other.
Exactly. Well, I knew they were putting their cards on the table when they let them build down the street from the Vatican. Let's be honest. And it was so quiet. Nobody knew.
The Process Church's worldwide worldwide museum is right down the street there in Rome. So these people all maybe meet for coffee. Maybe they meet for lattes down there near St. Peter's Square. Nick knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's been there. He went there last year, right? Nick, St. Peter's Square.
I went the year before. Yep. Yeah.
Oh, you've been there too. Oh, I'd love to go.
Yeah.
Love to go check out the Vatican in Rome. Not necessarily. Well, I would try to go in the Process Museum. I'm sure they wouldn't let me in there, but I'd try to go in there.
You gotta
tell me that after I had left, and I was like, I think you texted me. So
yeah. Well, I realized you were over there, and I sent you a message. I was like, "Yo, dude," you're like, "Oh, I just left Rome yesterday." I'm like, "Oh shit."
I was like,
Rome was amazing.
I definitely would have went because I did.
You got to try, right?
I mean, I wish I had more time there, and I did need more time, but I did have time to where I could have made that happen, for sure.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both. Awesome conversation. Always great with the. We got a full Occult Rejects roundtable tonight since Heidi's a recent addition to the Occult Rejects. So we went full blown Occult Rejects tonight.
All right, let's go.
All right.
Well, that's it. That's the show here, folks. So the next time you're out on the town, visiting your local watering holes, or perhaps just meandering around, and you hear the unmistakable sounds of metal clanking, and you spot signs of a disturbance, but check your six. look in that garbage can, 'cause you never can tell. The GCDs may be loose in your town.